There is something about Keanu Reeves that goes beyond his movies, beyond the fame, beyond the headlines that have followed him for decades. When I first learned about his life, I expected to find the typical Hollywood story of success and glamour. Instead, I found something that changed how I think about love, loss, and what it truly means to be human. This is a man who has faced the kind of pain that would break most people. He lost his best friend to an overdose. He lost his daughter just days after she was born. He lost the woman he loved in a tragic accident. And yet, when you see him in interviews, when you hear people talk about meeting him, what they describe is not bitterness or anger. They describe kindness. They describe humility. They describe a man who still believes in the goodness of others despite everything he has endured. That is what inspires me about Keanu Reeves. He did not let his pain turn him cold. He let it make him gentle. And the story I am about to share with you shows exactly what that gentleness can build when it meets the right person at the right time. The evening air carried a stillness that felt almost deliberate, as though the world itself had chosen to hold its breath. Somewhere in the distance, the faint hum of city traffic blended with the quiet, creating a softness that wrapped around everything like a forgotten memory. The light inside the gallery was warm but not bright, casting long shadows across polished floors that reflected fragments of color from the walls. A woman stood near the back of the room, her eyes moving slowly across the faces of strangers who wandered past her work without stopping. She was used to this, the way people glanced and moved on, never quite seeing what she had tried to say. But tonight something felt different. There was a weight in the air, a presence she could not name but could not ignore. Her hands rested at her sides, and without understanding why, she found herself waiting for something she could not describe. Alexandra Grant had spent years learning to translate feelings into images, words into colors, silence into shapes that somehow spoke louder than sound. Her art was not meant to be understood quickly. It demanded time, patience, the willingness to stand still and let meaning reveal itself layer by layer. Most people did not have that patience. They wanted art that explained itself in a single glance, that confirmed what they already believed rather than challenging them to feel something new. But she had made peace with this long ago. She created for the few who would truly see, and she had learned not to expect more than the world was willing to give. That night, a man walked into the gallery alone. He wore a simple jacket, nothing that announced wealth or status, and he moved through the space with the quiet confidence of someone who had learned to be comfortable with solitude. Alexandra noticed him only because he stopped in front of her largest piece, a canvas filled with layers of text and color that seemed to explode outward from some invisible center. She had worked on that painting for months, pouring into it every question she had ever asked about connection and meaning in the spaces between words where truth actually lived. Most visitors gave it 10 seconds before moving on. This man stood before it without moving, his eyes tracing paths across the surface that others never seemed to find. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. Alexandra watched from the shadows, her curiosity growing with each moment he remained still. There was something in his posture that spoke of recognition, as though he was not just looking at the painting but having a conversation with it. When he finally turned away, almost an hour after he had stopped, his eyes found hers across the empty room. He walked toward her slowly, and when he spoke, his voice was softer than she expected. "Your words are not meant to be read," he said. "They are meant to be felt." In that single sentence, he had understood something that Alexandra had never been able to explain to anyone, not to critics or collectors or even close friends who had known her for years. She felt her breath catch, a small disruption in the rhythm of an ordinary evening that would change the course of her entire life. They talked that night until the gallery closed, and then they continued talking on the sidewalk outside, surrounded by the indifferent noise of a city that had no idea what was beginning between two strangers who had just discovered they spoke the same language. Keanu told her about his love of books, his belief that art could heal wounds that medicine could not reach, his quiet dream of creating something that would outlast him. Alexandra listened and recognized in his words the same longing that had driven her work for as long as she could remember. By the time they parted ways, neither of them had mentioned romance or attraction or any of the things that usually define new connections. Instead, they had discovered something rarer and more valuable. They had found a collaborator. Over the following years, they built something together that confused everyone who watched from the outside. They created books that combined her visual art with his words. They founded a small publishing company dedicated to giving voice to artists who had been ignored by the mainstream. They attended events together, supported each other through professional challenges, and developed a friendship so deep that it seemed to exist in a category beyond ordinary relationships. But they did not date. They did not hold hands in public or pose for romantic photographs or give the world any of the signals it expected from two attractive people who clearly cared for each other. The questions came constantly. Journalists wanted to know why they were not together. Fans speculated endlessly on social media. The entertainment industry, which survived on manufactured drama and predictable storylines, could not understand a connection that refused to follow the expected script. But Keanu and Alexandra understood something that most people never learned. They knew that the strongest foundations are built slowly, that rushing toward romance before friendship is fully formed is like constructing a house on sand. They were not avoiding love. They were preparing for it, giving it time to grow roots deep enough to withstand any storm. Not everyone appreciated their patience. In the world of celebrity media, there are people who profit from chaos, who build empires on manufactured scandals and broken relationships. One such person was a man named Victor Ashworth, a publicist who had made millions by orchestrating fake romances and staged breakups that generated headlines and kept his clients in the public eye. For years, he had tried to sign Keanu as a client, promising to boost his profile and maximize his earning potential. Keanu had always declined, preferring authenticity over manufactured fame. Victor took this rejection personally, and as the years passed, his resentment grew into something darker. When Keanu and Alexandra finally appeared together at a formal event, holding hands for the first time in public, the world celebrated what seemed like a beautiful love story. But Victor saw an opportunity for revenge. He devised a plan so cruel that only someone who had forgotten how to feel could have conceived it. He hired a young actress, coached her carefully, and arranged for her to encounter Keanu at a gala while Alexandra stepped away briefly. Photographers, tipped off in advance, captured images that were designed to look suspicious. The actress laughing, touching Keanu's arm, leaning close in a way that suggested intimacy. The photographs spread across the internet within hours. Headlines screamed about betrayal and wandering eyes and trouble in paradise. Comment sections filled with cruelty directed at Alexandra, mocking her appearance, questioning her worth, suggesting that she had always been temporary. She saw it all at 3 a.m, sitting alone in her home while sleep refused to come. The carefully constructed wall she had built around her heart began to crack as she read words written by strangers who knew nothing about her life but felt entitled to judge it anyway. Keanu did not see the photographs until the following morning. When he understood what had happened, when he recognized the deliberate choreography behind the images, he felt a cold fury unlike anything he had experienced in years. This was not random cruelty. This was targeted destruction, and he knew exactly who was responsible. For 3 weeks, Keanu disappeared from public view. Alexandra threw herself into her work, creating paintings so dark that they frightened everyone who saw them. The tabloids interpreted their silence as confirmation that the relationship had ended. Speculation reached fever pitch, with headlines declaring the romance dead and experts analyzing what had gone wrong. Neither Keanu nor Alexandra responded to any of it. They were waiting for something, though the world had no idea what. What the world did not know was that Keanu had hired a private investigator, a former law enforcement officer who specialized in exposing media manipulation. The investigation took weeks, following paper trails and digital footprints until the truth became undeniable. Victor Ashworth had orchestrated everything. He had paid the actress, tipped off the photographers, and coordinated the timing to cause maximum damage. The evidence was overwhelming, enough to destroy Victor's career and reputation in a single news cycle. But when the moment came to release that evidence, Keanu made a choice that revealed more about his character than any movie role ever could. He arranged a private meeting with Victor, presenting the proof of his manipulation calmly and completely. Victor's confidence crumbled as he realized how thoroughly he had been caught. He expected threats, lawsuits, public humiliation. He had built his entire career on understanding how powerful people responded to attacks, and he braced himself for retaliation. Instead, Keanu offered him something he had never given anyone: mercy. "You are going to retire quietly," Keanu explained. "You are going to stop destroying lives for profit. And you are going to spend whatever years you have left trying to remember who you were before you became this. I am not going to expose you. I am not going to ruin you. I am going to give you what you never gave anyone else, a chance to walk away and become something better." Victor was stunned into silence. In his entire career, no one had ever responded to an attack with compassion. He had expected the weapons he understood: power and revenge and public destruction. He had not prepared for kindness. "Why?" he finally managed to ask. "Why would you let me go when you could destroy me?" "Because revenge is not the strategic choice," Keanu replied. "Mercy is. I have lost too many people I love to waste any more of my life on hatred. You tried to break something precious, and you failed. That is enough for me." Weeks later, Alexandra received a package at her studio. Inside was a letter of apology and a thumb drive containing evidence of every manufactured scandal Victor had ever created, annotated with proof of their falseness. The letter was brief but sincere, expressing regret not just for the attack but for the years Victor had spent believing that nothing real existed. He had retired, just as Keanu requested, and he was trying to find his way back to the person he had been before ambition poisoned everything. Alexandra sat with the letter for a long time, feeling something she had not expected. Not triumph or satisfaction, but sadness for a man who had been so lost that he could not recognize love when he saw it. She showed the letter to Keanu that evening, and they talked about forgiveness and second chances and the strange way that showing mercy to an enemy can heal wounds you did not know you carried. They appeared together at a press event shortly after, not to address the scandal but to announce a new initiative through their publishing company. They were funding art therapy programs for people struggling with grief, creating spaces where loss could be transformed into beauty. When a reporter inevitably asked about the manufactured controversy, Keanu smiled with genuine warmth. "There was no scandal," he said simply. "There was only a misunderstanding created by someone who could not believe that two people might choose each other slowly and deliberately, not because of what they could gain but because of what they could build. We made a strategic choice. We chose patience over urgency, depth over display, and foundation over fireworks. And when the attacks came, we had something that could not be destroyed by photographs or headlines." Alexandra stepped forward to add her own words. "Everyone wanted to know why we did not just date like other people," she said. "Why we spent years as collaborators before acknowledging what we were becoming. They thought it was strange, maybe even suspicious. But we understood something that is easy to forget. The best things in life are not found. They are constructed, day by day, choice by choice. You do not stumble into love that lasts. You build it." Several years later, Alexandra opened a new exhibition called Strategic Architecture, exploring the invisible structures we create to protect the things we cherish most. The centerpiece was a massive painting titled 15 Years, a complex work that appeared chaotic at first glance but revealed hidden patterns to anyone patient enough to look. Keanu attended the opening and stood before that painting for nearly an hour, just as he had stood before her work the night they first met. When he finally turned away, Alexandra was watching from across the room. "Your words are still not meant to be read," he said softly as he crossed to stand beside her. "They are meant to be felt." She took his hand, the hand she had waited years to hold in public, and smiled at the man who had taught her that the most powerful choices are often the quietest ones. Victor Ashworth now teaches photography to teenagers in community centers, helping young people find their voice through art. On his desk sits a book published by the company Keanu and Alexandra founded together, signed with a simple message: "Second chances are the most strategic choice of all." He looks at that inscription sometimes when the work feels difficult, remembering the moment when someone showed him kindness he did not deserve and changed the entire direction of his life. This story matters because it challenges everything our culture tells us about love and success and power. We are taught to move fast, to grab opportunities before they disappear, to fight fire with fire when enemies attack. We are taught that patience is weakness and mercy is foolishness, and that the only way to protect yourself is to destroy anyone who threatens you. But Keanu and Alexandra proved that there is another way. They showed that building slowly creates structures that last, that choosing kindness over revenge heals the person who chooses as much as the person who receives. They demonstrated that two people can construct something so real and so deep that no manufactured scandal can touch it. The greatest lesson of their story is not about romance at all. It is about the power of strategic choices, the decisions we make deliberately rather than reactively, the moments when we pause instead of rushing and consider what we truly want to build. Every day, we face choices between fast and slow, between shallow and deep, between destruction and compassion. Every day, we have the opportunity to construct something lasting or to chase something temporary. Keanu and Alexandra chose construction. They chose patience. They chose each other, not in a moment of passion, but through years of intentional building that created a foundation strong enough to hold anything. And that is why their story inspires me. Not because of the fairy tale ending, but because of the daily choices that made that ending possible. They remind me that we are all architects of our own lives, that every decision we make either strengthens our foundation or weakens it. They remind me that kindness is not weakness but strength, that mercy is not foolishness but wisdom, that patience is not passivity but power. So the next time you face a choice between fast and slow, between revenge and forgiveness, between what is easy and what is right, remember this story. Remember two people who refused to let the world rush them into something fragile and chose instead to build something unbreakable. Remember that strategic choices, made with intention and maintained with courage, can create a love that headlines cannot destroy and time cannot diminish. And remember that every single day, in ways large and small, you are building something too. Choose wisely. Build slowly. Love deeply. And never underestimate the power of a strategic choice made with kindness at its core.